Hey class, this is Mr. Fuller. I wanted to try something different to explain an interactive map activity that we're going to do in class. So I'm going to go through this really quick, but then I want to give you this video so you can go back and check on some things on your own. You should have a handout I gave you in class. I want to take a look at that. Once you go into Google Classroom and click on the link, it'll take you to this right here. Obviously click Launch, and that will take you to the interactive map. And it looks just like this. So here's the United States from 1860 to 1890. And remember, at this time, it wasn't really the United States yet. I mean, it was, but it wasn't what the same states as we know today. So what we're going to do is take a look at how more states were added to our union as people began to move west. So first thing I want you to do is look at step one. I want you to add Native American tribes. So right here, click on Add Native American Tribes and look at all these different groups of peoples that actually inhabited much of the western United States. The Apaches are a pretty famous tribe, as are the Cheyenne, Crows, the Sioux in Dakota. We'll talk more about them, but all these different groups. So as people from the east and these eastern states moved west, my first question for you is, how might these tribes influence western migration? The fact that there's so many people here already occupying this land, how is that going to impact all those people that are moving west from the east? All right, next what I want you to do, step two, I want you to take away the tribes for a little bit. So you click on None, and there they go, they disappeared. And then I want you to add states and territories. And again, what I want to point out is right here, if you look at the key, these shaded no color states, just a white line, are actual states that existed in 1860. This line, the diagonal, are territories, and the squiggly here looks kind of like waves here, and up in Alaska, means it's unorganized. And so I put a little definition on that sheet. Unorganized territory means the United States claimed this land. They just hadn't gone in and drawn all the borders yet. So what happened is, eventually this all became a territory, meaning it was a set border. We recognized this as Wyoming or this as Idaho, but it wasn't really a state yet. In order to become a state, you needed people. So as people moved west from these eastern states, they started to form governments, build towns, and set up, and then they actually applied and became a state. So if you look in 1860, these are our U.S. states, and then we have California and Oregon over here. But if you click on the bottom, this is what makes the map fun, 1870. You can move through different time periods, and you notice as you click on these how the map changes. So starting with 1860, this is all just unorganized, or it's all territory. By 1870, it's starting to get a little more organized. They cleared up the Dakotas. Oklahoma's still in flux, but you can see by 1880, more of these territories are now becoming states. So you can see the change. So by 1890, many of the states that we have today, most, are actually already formed. So I guess my first question is, 1860, 1870, what does the trend in states that are being added, what does that tell you about how people moved? So we can see back again 1860, 1870, 1880 is a big change, more and more states, and then 1890, all these states. What pattern are we seeing, and how does that relate to settlement? And then another question, it's just kind of a challenge. You don't have to answer this one, but if you can, how might this trend impact Native Americans? What kind of issues are going to arise as these territories become officially states? Next, what I want you to do, and let's just check back here for a second. We should be slide 2. Territories became states when people moved there, challenge question. All right, next we're going to add improved agricultural land. So back on our map, I want you to leave the states. I want to click here, improved agricultural land. And this is just a fancy way to say farms, farmland. So each green dot represents 25,000 acres of land, which is a lot, farmland. So again, start with 1860, 1870, 1880, 1890. We're seeing what? More and more green spots as more and more farmland is emerging. It's coming into being. So what I want you to think about and answer on your sheet are, what are two reasons we saw such an increase in farmland? So think about the things we studied last week. Think about new technologies we learned about in class. How did these things influence the number of farms? And then what I want you to think about is a challenge question. Answer it if you can. If we notice, for instance, in 1870, this area right here is still a territory, and there's not a lot of farms in it. By 1880, look, it's a state, and there are many farms in it. What is the connection between these two? So I want to go back to this slide 4. And now we're going to add railroads. So right here, I want to go back to the map, and I want to add railroads. Pretty easy. Cha-ching. So those brown lines represent major railways. And you can see it's concentrated on the eastern states. But what's going to happen? We're going to see more and more So think about this. What is the relationships between farmland and railroads? How are they connected? So think about, if you remove the railroads, all the farmland in 1870, add them back. So this area, for example, has one major rail line. By 1880, by 1890, it has many more railways. And look, there's a great deal number of farms. So why is that? So then here's your challenge question. Chicken or the egg? Which came first? Railroad expansion or more farms? So go back and study the map and watch the trends, and you tell me which came first. And why is that? And then finally, the last thing we're going to add to our map, we're on step number 5, we're going to take a look at major cities. So on our map here, we're going to click on this button and add major cities. Red is the smallest cities, yellow is the largest. Right now in 1860, we don't have a single U.S. city over 1 million in population. A couple real big ones, Philly, New York. But by 1870, we're seeing these smaller cities start to pop up. Little Chicago, St. Louis. 1880, we have our first few cities over 1 million, New York, Chicago. And we're seeing more what emerge? More of those red dots. Now, where are these red dots emerging? Where are they showing up? Where are these red dots, these new cities, being formed? So I want you to tell me why. Why are these red dots popping up where they are? What are the factors? What are the reasons that this may occur? And then just go ahead and answer that on your sheet. So hopefully by doing this, it'll get you to really think about westward expansion in a slightly different way. And you can see how America came from largely over here to being more spread out and becoming on the road to becoming the 50 states that we know today. So please raise your hand if you have any questions in class, and I hope this was helpful. Thanks.